There are currently 6 openings league-wide. There were 7, then Doug Collins took the 76ers job. Here are the half-dozen vacancies at this moment, which include the Cavaliers job. It became available when the team fired Mike Brown this week. Reportedly, the Hornets have begun negotiating a contract with Celtics assistant Tom Thibodeau. He, of course, has other matters to deal with at the moment as well, namely a playoff run. But it's an interesting summer out there, and Jackson's just one of the guys who potentially could move, although he said there's a 90% or so chance that he's either going to stay with the Lakers or wind up retire. What did you hear from Jackson? What did you make of those comments?
Well, first, being that Mark Cuban has been fined and other people have been fined, I wish we could trace where this leak came from, because I think the owners need to be fined, because the only reason why they're talking about Phil Jackson coming these places is to try to recruit LeBron James. So let's just get that out. Don't fine me, Mr. Commissioner. I'm just telling it like it is. But I think the Cleveland job is really intriguing, but I think that the residents of Cleveland, and let's start with the owner, needs to realize they're Cleveland. And what I mean by that, Cleveland has never been a great team. Mark Price and Brad Daugherty, to me, is the extension of that great Cleveland team. And so you have to remember who you are, because if LeBron doesn't come back, you're in trouble. It took LeBron being born for you guys to be good. Okay?
Inaccurate.
Yeah. And I don't think, it's going to be another LeBron in the next 5 years come out. So I would just say, some teams really need to be careful. That team has got to the top, lost together, have built their own chemistry. And you have to have someone like a Kevin McHale, who's won many championships as a player, or one of the 4 Hall of Fame coaches come in that I think that would get the respect of a main player like a LeBron James. I did think that the Chicago job definitely was interesting, because when you look at it, you have a young point guard. You may be able to get a Bosh, but, since I might not be sitting there next to you too long, I mean, what do you think are the most, in the top, let's say 2 out of these 6 intriguing jobs are?
I think there's some really good jobs. Of course, I think Cleveland, they've won 61 games this year, 66 last year. But if LeBron goes, that's, all bets are off. That is no longer the crown jewel of jobs.
Right.
I think if you look at the New Jersey Nets, it's an interesting job. They're going to move to Brooklyn. They've got the new Russian owner. They've got a 3rd pick in the draft. They got big Brook Lopez. They've got some players. I like Courtney Lee, can shoot it. I think Devin Harris can do some stuff. And it might be a perfect storm of those guys moving, new owner and everything else, and really get a resurgence and make them viable again in the NBA. I think Chicago, of course, is a great job. I think Rose is just a dynamic player. They got cap space, and by the way, New Jersey has cap space too. They have cap space. Taj Gibson, you got Luol Deng. You've got so many guys out there that can play. I mean, I love Noah's got great energy, defensive guy. So that's a good job. The Clippers.
Yeah.
They've got Kaman. They got Eric Gordon.
Might be one of the most talented out of those.
And let me tell you, and Chicago's got cap room.
Yeah.
The Clippers got cap room, along with Eric Gordon and Kaman. And they got Blake Griffin coming back after being injured all last year. So there's some very, very interesting jobs out there that I think a lot of people would be looking to take.
And you said something earlier. We were talking in the back, and I said, well, would you really be interested in the Nets? And he said, yeah, and he was giving off all these players. And then before he left, he said, there's not much to go up from here. You win 1 game, you've already
exactly. I said, I think the next coach can win 13. So it's you're on that building. You're on that building plateau.
Well, the other interesting dynamic, as you guys talked about with the cap room, you've got a lot of teams that are trying to hire coaches before they know who's going to be on the roster. And in some cases, you're talking about before they know if huge stars are going to be on the roster. How does that change the way they go about hiring a coach?
I'm sure it really changed. I think they'd like to get their coach in place and use him to help recruit the players. I think that's what they're going to try to do. But of the teams that have openings, Chicago's got big cap room. I talked about New Jersey's got big cap room. The Clippers got big cap room. So things change dynamic. It's so dynamic and so fluid. Things change quickly. It'll be very, very. It's going to be a fun, interesting summer for a lot of people.
I definitely agree. And being a free agent before, the main thing that gave me comfort was my coach was going to be there and the same GM, because he drafted all these great guys. And so I had a comfort system, and I agree with you, Matt. A lot of these teams hopefully go about the right way, getting the coach in place first, letting the coach and the GM go to the house of the player and recruit them and say, this is what I'm going to do for you. Because until you have that coach or your boss look you in the face and has an honest conversation with you, all your thoughts are still up in the air because you don't know what to hang your hat up on.
It's one thing if the player in question is already on your roster, you could maybe ask him. It's another thing entirely if you're trying to get the player to come to your city and you can't talk to the player until July.
Right.
Yes. And you don't have a coach.
Tricky business.